Marianne Anderson, Healing Wisdom PDX. And this week I'm going to start conversation on stress, talking about stress and how it can be useful, actually, in our lives, how it gets us to motivate to change. That is what stressors do. When you put stress on something, it motivates the change because too much stress will, cause something to dissolve. So when we think about why stressors live in our lives from the time we get up in the morning till the time we go to sleep, they're there to motivate, to create change. And change is a good thing. That's the cycle of how we live. But we all know that the world that we're living in now is it's a changing world. So much change, especially change that's removed from you. I mean, we're all kind of looking at the world at large. We've just gone through COVID, where the whole world was involved with our personal everyday life. Those are big stressors that we're not really well equipped to cope with. And when stressors get big and unresolvable, what happens to our physical, emotional health starts to break down. And that's where stress becomes debilitating and where we really need to learn to cope, not just cope, but to use the tools to recognize first when the stressors are just taking you out. Life is not working and you're not living well. And when you get to that place of recognition, what can you do to help yourself to move through that, to actually create little changes so that you're moving that stress out of the way? So in my practice, I see stress as one of the number one things to work with. So people come in for injury. They come in because they have a disease they're dealing with, or they come in because they want relaxation or some lifestyle changes. But whatever the reason they come to see me, stress is usually the precursor to them coming in, because stress is asking them to make some changes. So in Eastern philosophy, which is what I use to operate my acupuncture practice, we call that a Shen disturbance. It's this disturbance in your well-being that happens at the level of the heart. So something has hit you to where your heart you're just not with yourself. And the way of coping with that primarily is to just check out. When it gets too much, check out. So you get brain fog, you get anxiety, you get shortness of breath. There's a lot of symptoms that go along with the overwhelm of stress that are recognizable. But often it's taken us a while to get to that point. The build-up, we keep coping, and the next build-up, coping, until you run out of coping skills. That's when things become, very important to change. So I think that what I would like to introduce are tools that are useful tools that actually work and create that simple change that can relieve you of enough stress or move it out of the way, move it actually out of the picture, so that it works and that it's helpful. What we use as coping mechanisms and things that have relieved stress in the past, and I think have been helpful tools introduced to society, things like meditation, walking in the woods, things that are actual habitual practices that help, but they've sort of become that habitual practice. So it becomes a little like Groundhog Day, where you're doing these things that people have told you, this relieves stress, so I'm going to do it. And basically you're just doing them over and over and over again and praying that they'll work. But I think that to deal with a real Shen disturbance, to get to, where the heart can calm down and you can return to self, there are places you need to actually go to get there. And I think that one of the places or the best place to go is to be inspired by something. When the stressors are big, we tend to just feel uninspired and kind of like just that coping. We're just coping. If you can introduce inspiration into the picture, what you're doing is you're inspiring yourself to look to a different place for comfort, for relief, for a return to your heart. Like, where do I feel like I'm going to take a breath and feel like excited about something? When you are inspired, it reintroduces those childlike qualities of curiosity and following something else down. So you're following your curiosity instead of your stressors, right? So I think over the next few weeks, this is what we'll do, and talk about tools that can be used that actually are very helpful. And I'm going to give you an example of just a little simple tool that I think is helpful. And for one reason, that it takes you out of expectation. So it's a tool that just, I'll give you the start and finish of it, very simple. But one of the things that is important to remember is that you don't have an expectation of what will happen at the end, and no worry about what you need to do about that. So here we go. Simple tool. Take a walk. Go outside. When it's overwhelming, when you need to deal with a little bit of stress that you just can't handle, it's about a 10 or 15 minute interruption of what you're doing, but take a walk. And I don't mean go out to the woods and have a nice walk in the woods. Actually, start at the beginning of your block and go to the end of the block and back. But in that short walk, no distractions, no headphones, no thinking about your stressors or your day or your schedule or anything, but simply one instruction is to walk from one end of the block to the other and try to find something that you've never seen before. This is discovery. So you'll start at one end of the block, and your intention is only to look for things you've never seen before. What's interesting about that is, you see there's trees, there's bushes, there's nature in there, and you can be guaranteed that the leaves that were there, last month are not the same leaves or they're in a different, there's always something to discover. This is an inspiration, because once you've gone from one end of your block to the other, which is familiar to you because you go down that block 100 times a day, and how come I didn't notice that? Oh, the doorknob on the neighbor's door is like really cool. It looks like it doesn't go with the architecture. That's an interesting thing. And it inspires you to even look further. So when we get to inspiration, the thing that takes your attention into somewhere that makes you have a sense of wonder and curiosity, this is what we talk about as awakening the Shen. So awakening the heart. What do you see in something that makes you go, wow, I didn't notice that before? And how come I'm noticing it now? And where does it lead me? Like if I saw the doorknob on a house that, wow, I never noticed that before. I never noticed how it doesn't go with the architecture. Probably for me, it's because those are the things that I love to notice and I'm interested in. And so it'll take me down a new path. You're now out of the stressors of your ruminating thinking, and you're into a place where you've re-inspired yourself to think about things that capture your attention. So I'm going to suggest that everybody tries it this week, just to see what it's like to walk walk a few feet, find something that inspires you that you never would have thought of, yesterday, and see how that can be a place where you can motivate yourself out of old habits and patterns. And we'll just keep talking about this subject of stress, because I think that if we can discover new ways to deal with stress and bring things in a little bit smaller and into ourselves, we can make our days a little easier and a little more enjoyable.